Welcome back to another episode of My First Car Podcast with a very, very special episode today. Today's one of those milestone episodes, Jeff. We got the one and only Matt Farah on the podcast today. He's talking his car history and he's got some great stories for us. But before we get to that, Jeff, where are we found now?
As of today, as of this podcast, we're available on Spotify. They finally opened it up and allowed other people to put their podcasts on.
And before we get to the interview, we just want to let everybody know that we love you and we appreciate all the support you give us, and we appreciate the ratings and the comments on YouTube and the likes on YouTube and the ratings on all the iTunes. I can't. Never mind. That was my Cosby impression, and it just went south before.
Let's not do Cosby.
Well, there's a much less appropriate Cosby impression I can do, but I won't do that one. Anyway, I guess we'll just get right to it. Our guest today needs no introduction. Matt Farah, host of The Smoking Tire. And we actually we go back a ways.
Where do we go back to?
Do you remember doing a thing for the Forza game a while back for the Xbox?
Sure, yeah.
Do you remember the Europe trip?
Yes.
I was on that thing with you.
What car were you in?
I was in the convertible Bentley.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That was a neat time.
That was a great trip.
I thought that was pretty fun.
We were Team Canada.
Yes. Yes.
And,
the Bentley was not the most glamorous car there, but in hindsight, considering part of the rules were we had to drive the fucking speed limit everywhere, the Bentley was the place to be.
It was probably the most comfortable of all the vehicles, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, they put me. I was in Forza 6 and 7, and I had like a sponsorship for my podcast with them. And they really, really wanted the American team, which was me, to be in the Huracan, which was the cover car for the new game, right? But I had driven a Huracan, and I knew exactly what this thing was going to be like. And Huracans are so uncomfortable. And I was like, guys, there's no way I'm driving a Huracan for 2,000 miles at the speed limit.
Right.
I'm going to murder somebody. And they're like, all right, well, what car do you want? I was like, I want the R8. I was like, that's like a Huracan, but it's actually comfortable. Right. And they're like, well, but you don't want to be in like the new sweet Lambo? I'm like, hell no, that shit is uncomfortable.
He's in sweet Lambos all the time. When he's a sweet
it's
Lambo.
Not about because look, it's one thing, there's a mystique about Lamborghinis and whatever, but we're not in the age of the Countach where they build 400 cars a year and you just never see them.
Yeah.
I live in Los Angeles, man. A Huracan is a pretty, even at the time we're talking, the Huracan was new, but I'd driven it and I'd been in, Gallardos and stuff. And a Lamborghini is a lovely car if you can fit in it, but there's nothing to me that is, the mystique is gone now that it's such a commoditized thing. And I'm not trying to specifically crap on Lamborghini. I think they're doing a good job. I just, that the state of exotic cars right now is that they're more accessible than they've ever been.
Well, you bring up that was a really, really long road trip. I think you made the right choice.
Oh, dude, I got, comfort is hugely underrated.
Absolutely.
Especially like, when you're a kid or when you're young and stupid and energetic and healthy, you go, hell yeah, I daily drive a race car, open headers, slam it to the ground, whatever, take out the whole interior. I'm 36. At the time I was like 33, I guess, or 32, but I was old enough to be like, no.
Yeah. And over the course of 5 days, mainly off highway driving. I remember a lot of 50 mile an hour speed limits during that trip. That was definitely the choice to make. Luckily, I got stuck in the Bentley. I mean, I'm not going to complain about that.
You got stuck in a Bentley. It's so terrible to drive around Europe in a Bentley. How awful for you.
It was the worst.
I'm so sorry.
Anyway, thanks for doing this and welcome to the podcast.
Sure, my pleasure.
I don't know how many cars you have owned. Has it been a lot?
Probably not quite as many as you'd think.
Okay.
You know, I've always sort of been like kind of limited by space and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's probably not that. I don't think I've ever done an actual count. I'd say it's like probably more than 15, but less than 22 or 23.
Okay.
You know, but there's been some that are not really worth talking about.
Well, yeah.
How long you guys want to spend on a 2008 Honda Odyssey?
As long as you've got, man. Oh wait, speaking of the Honda Odyssey, did you watch the
minivans?
A little off topic, but did you watch the Netflix show? What's it called? Fastest Car, I think it's called.
I watched a little bit of it and found it to be unwatchable.
Okay, because there is a Honda Odyssey in that thing.
Yeah, the Bisimoto one. I drove that car.
You drove that car?
Yeah, I drove it. I did a show called Tuned for the YouTube Drive Network, and I drove that thing.
Wow.
That thing will do a burnout in any gear at any speed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's very useful for getting to soccer practice.
It was, you know, actually, surprisingly enough, the practicality of it really wasn't ruined. You know, Busy actually did take his kids to school in that thing. It has like an interior that's really nice. And other than being like kind of loud, it was on airbags. So it actually like it rode pretty good. I wouldn't say it handled well, but it wasn't like you know, it was okay. It was drivable.
To get the groceries, it's not bad, right?
It was fine. Honestly, it was pretty fast, you know, and it was just like, you know, Busy. He knew that you know, they had a manual gearbox in it. They put a manual from like an Acura TL, I think, and you know, he knew the gearbox just couldn't handle, because it was like 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
That it couldn't handle that, and so his you know, quick sort of thinking solution was, well, just put really tires on it, so it'll just do burnouts all the time, you know, but it won't grenade the gearbox every time you hit boost. So it did a burnout every time you'd hit boost. It was really ridiculous. You'd have to like, if you wanted it to hook, you'd have to like super roll onto it, but it really just did burnouts everywhere. It just made you laugh. I mean, I'm not sure it was like good to drive, but like it definitely made me laugh really hard. And there's, I mean, if you go, you can go find the video. Like, no, it sounds like a Formula One car. I mean, it sounds so crazy, you know, and it had like a roof rack on it. So to be, you know, to hear that sound coming, and then what passes you is like a van.
A Honda Odyssey with a roof rack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually that thing was one of my favorites on the show, just because of how ridiculous it was. That was the definition of sleeper. A lot of those cars I wouldn't consider them sleepers, but that one, that was it. Everything
that Busy builds is nuts. He doesn't build things that aren't nuts. I just drove. He built a Boxster, where you sit in the middle.
Okay.
And it's also has like twin turbos, and it's like 500 horsepower, and it's like 2,500 pounds. Wow. But you sit in the middle, and so it's real. You know, it's real crazy. So I have a video of that's out right now.
Let's start with your second car. Not mention the first one just yet. Second car, and then whatever else you want to mention up until what you're driving today.
All right. So here's the thing. I don't have a clear defined first and second car.
Okay.
Like the first, like, is there a reason you don't want me to say the first car? Like,
no,
it's just a little murky. That's all. Like,
okay, no problem.
Like, so I had like, when I first got my license, I got like a hand-me-down Mercury Villager minivan, Mercury the Nautica Villager. Edition.
The Nautica edition.
My mom. Yeah, the Nautica.
I remember those cars.
Capsized sailboat. Yeah.
Yes.
The white wheels, all that.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it was hilarious. So that was actually my first minivan, and that was where my love for minivans started.
You don't hear that too often.
Well, dude, so I had moved on from this minivan after this was like a 96 or 97 Villager. I think it was a 96. And I got rid of it. And then I bought my dad had a 92 Lexus LS400 that he bought new, and it was just like, you know, his car. Mm-hmm. And that car like when the LS400 was new, and I was like, I don't know, I was like 11 when that thing came out, or when my dad brought it home. That car was incredible when it was brand new. Like, I don't know, how old are you guys?
I'm same age as you.
35, 36?
36, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the same.
when I was a kid and I got into an LS400 for the first time, it was silent. It was completely silent, and everything was so soft and so smooth, and it was like the craziest thing I'd ever seen. So anyway, that car in 1998, my dad had it 6 years. I think it probably had 55 or 60,000 miles on it, maybe, which, as we now know, is nothing for one of those. So he sold it to me for, I mean, I think it was like $6,000. Like, not like, I think it was probably worth 20, and he sold it to me for 6, like a good dad would do.
Absolutely.
He made me earn it a bit, but like, where was a 17-year-old going to get $20,000?
Yeah.
So, I sold shoes. I worked at Foot Locker and I worked at Champs Sports.
Champs, nice.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, my dad was the CEO of that company.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Venator, right? So it used to be Woolworths, and my dad actually, do you remember how there used to be Woolworths and now there aren't Woolworths?
We're both Canadian, so I don't think we even had Woolworths.
Oh, so here. Woolworths was like the original department store.
Okay.
Like in the early 1900s. So the Americans will know about this one. Anyway, it doesn't exist anymore because my father shut it down.
Oh,
and believe me, I've been in enough Woolworths. Nobody misses it. But the company also owned Foot Locker and Champ Sports, and those businesses obviously continued on. Anyway, so I sold shoes and saved money and gave my dad $6,000, and I had this car, which I drove for like 6 months, this LS400. It was a great car, but I was into cars. I wasn't just like, my first 2 cars, the Villager and this, make you think like I have no interest in cars whatsoever, but I was very into cars. And as my other friends who were into cars started like buying like Mustangs and, used Mustangs and Eclipses and that kind of stuff, I was sort of like, oh, like this old man car is like not really for me. And so I sold it for obviously more than I paid for it. And I got a Subaru Legacy GT, which I liked. This was like the 2.5 GT. It was like the 98, and I got it new. Like my dad's best friend owns a dealership. And so he gave me the super best friend price. So it was actually a brand new car that I got at a really serious discount from a very good family friend. And I was like so excited about that car. And first I did like, so that car was the first car that was like my car. So that's when I say it's murky. Like I drove a couple cars like weren't really my cars. And like this one was my car.
How did Dad feel about you turning a profit on the Lexus?
Oh, I asked him first, and he said he didn't care. My dad is like, for a big like corporate titan guy that's like, hard to escape the shadow of. My dad is remarkably chill and pragmatic.
Awesome.
About a lot of things. Most things, almost everything. In fact, he's remarkably chill about everything. He's the best. But yeah, he said if I didn't want it, I could trade it and get whatever I could get out of it. That was fine. And so it wasn't like I did that like a week later. I drove the thing for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I got the Subaru, and first we all went to Chinatown and got like stolen car stereo stuff and did like, the subs in the trunk. Like everybody was doing subs in the trunk back then.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I'm super embarrassed about it now, but like I've talked about it before and I have pictures even. I put phantom lights on it. Like underglow, street glow.
Really?
Yeah, but like let's go, just recall the year. Year was 1998. Okay, Fast and the Furious came out in 2000.
So you were pre-Fast. They based that movie on you.
Yeah, no. I'm not trying to say I'm a trendsetter. I'm just trying to say that I did it before it was totally embarrassing. That's all. Like at the time I did it, I swear to God, at the time I did it, my friends thought that cool.
Well, I think everybody did back then. It was awesome. Like I'd see cars running down the street or driving down the street with those things just glowing, and I would want that for my vehicle.
Yeah, so like I did the street glow underneath the car, and then I did the short neon bars underneath the seats and the footwells. So I had the glowing footwell. Like Ford and Mercedes do that now. Like I had this in '98.
I did that in my Talon a few years after you
The
did.
Talon, yes. Of course you did a Talon, yes. So yeah, no, so I, you know, and I put actually like a Shelby style racing stripe down the middle of it. And all my friends were into muscle cars. I didn't know really anything about Japanese cars, and all my friends were into muscle cars. And so I actually got one of those Hurst T-handle shift knobs.
Oh my God, for your Subaru
5-speed shifter, and it was so stupid. I'll tell you why it was so dumb. Those things are made of metal, and I'd park this car outside, you know, when I go to school or whatever. The shifter knob would come back at the end of the day. It'd be like 300 degrees. It would like sear Hurst into my palm, you know, like Joe Pesci in Home Alone with the doorknob.
If your friends were all into like muscle cars, what made you choose the Subaru? Was it just because of the ties you had to the Subaru dealership?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the value in getting the most for my money by buying something that this dude was selling.
Okay.
I think I liked how it looked. I thought it was like comfortable. I liked the all-wheel drive at the time.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool because I remembered that one of the other reasons I sold the Lexus was because it wasn't very good in the snow.
Right.
You know, at the time I was not committing to snow tires, and so I think the all-wheel drive was appealing or something like that. As I learned quickly, I had that Subaru for about a year, but before we had the WRX in America, people didn't really modify Subarus. You couldn't really, there weren't a lot of parts you could get. I mean, you could get like an exhaust and you get some like suspension stuff, but like you couldn't really do anything. And like, you know, my friends with the Mustangs were doing heads and cams and porting, polishing, and they're doing the rear gears, and they're doing American racing wheels. And, you know, one of my friends, Larry Casilla, actually famous detailer now, ammo, you know, he's a superstar detailer. His Mustang, you know, he pulled the motor out and boarded 30 over, and they were all doing this shit, and I had this Subaru that, like, you know, no one even really sold any performance parts for. So I took that Subaru and I sold that, and I got a Mustang.
What year?
It was a 94.
Oh.
Everyone else had Fox bodies, and I wanted a notchback so bad. I wanted a notchback more than anything, but my mom wouldn't let me have one because it didn't have airbags. That was the thing. Which, look, you know, Jewish mother, but you know, I'm 36 right now, right? If I had a kid, making him get a car, not a first car, but a car in his teenage years that had airbags was not the worst thing. So I got the 94, which had the dual airbags, but underneath it was the same. So me and my friends, mainly my friends, because I'm a terrible wrench and I never enjoyed wrenching. I just liked hanging out in the garage. You know, we did the motor. We pulled out the motor, and there was the Subaru was practically new. The Mustang at the time was like 7-8 years old. It was a 90, whatever that math is, 5 years old. You know, so it was Subaru plus cash for the Mustang. So I don't think I had the Mustang a week before it was like 355s in the rear, pull the motor out, 347 stroker kit, you know, and we modified the shit out of that thing, you know. And then, so that got me to about 17 years old. Then there's the sort of well-known story about the bar mitzvah money, and my Corvette, which is, you know, I had this C5 Corvette up until a couple years ago. It's fairly, I suppose, well-known car if you know my work, which I got by cashing out my entire bar mitzvah account. Wow. When I was 18. And there's a long story about, you know, Judaism and blah, blah, blah. And it goes into, I could take up the entire rest of the podcast telling it. I've told it a million times. Frankly,
it's easily accessible.
It's easily accessible, and we could talk about more interesting things now than talking about that again. But that's the bottom line is I ended up with this Mustang and this Corvette. The Corvette was like special. I mean, it was a brand new Corvette. It wasn't like an 8-year-old Mustang. At the time, we're talking about 1998. The C5 was new, and after all those years of the C4, the C5 was like almost like a spaceship or something. You know, it was so refined and awesome and fast. And I mean, at the time, it was like, holy, this thing is so fast. And it was for an 18-year-old. But I was like really committed to like driving that car responsibly. I drove that car when I was younger. I drove that car like a huge. I did. In fact, with the exception of, we used to go to drag strips on the weekend, me and Larry Casilla and my friend Jimmy, who did most of the wrenching on our cars. He was the big wrench. And Jimmy's dad, and like a few of these guys, we would go to the drag strip every weekend. And I was never really that into drag racing, but I liked horsepower and loud engines and the old men bullshit at the track. There was always some crazy thing happening. We'd be at this like super white trash drag strip. It was not like one of the good ones. We'd go out to this like real out in the middle of nowhere one. And I like that environment of being at the racetrack. It felt cool.
Yeah.
But with the exception of running my car down the quarter mile, a handful of times, I drove it like a total on the street. I really did.
What did it do? What was the time? What time did it do, by the way?
So stock, it did like a 15.4. And then we did the rear gears and tires, and it went into like the 14s.
Okay.
And then it went straight to the motor out after that, and it was we got it down in the 12s. So I think I ran a 12.9 or a 12.8.
Not bad.
Which at the time that was a pretty fast car.
Yeah. Well, even stock, it's pretty fast, especially for a 17-year-old.
Yeah, it was fast. It was. I remember we were all impressed at the time. Larry's Mustang was the fastest. He had a hatchback, and he had a set of slicks he would put on at the drag strip.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he ran like a 12.4. Now, Jimmy, the guy who built all our cars, believe it or not, still has his fucking 88 hatchback that he had in high school.
That's awesome.
And it now runs like 8s or something.
Yeah, he's committed to the cause now.
Yeah, and as you may have heard, I finally got my notchback.
You did? I didn't hear that.
I have like a heavily built canyon and road course prepped Fox body notchback now.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's fucking badass. It has independent rear suspension. It's a full, like, Maximum Motorsports, which builds Mustang race cars, took their American Iron car that they have that won the American Iron Championship 3 years in a row, and replicated that car underneath my car, but without any of the class rules.
Wow.
Yeah. So my car is underneath an 88 body on my car is a complete 2004 Cobra.
Is that the one on your Twitter banner?
Yeah, the black one. It's wide body. Yeah, I run
sick.
295 tires at all four corners.
Yeah, those are huge.
Yeah, it pulls 1.2 G on the track. There's video of me driving it at the track at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It's not like crazy fast because it doesn't have a ton of horsepower. It's only about 280 horsepower at the wheels, and 3,100 pounds. But like, it's not really meant to be a track car. It's just like a fun bombing canyons car. And like, if you really wanted to make it go fast, like, you'd have to change the engine. Like, it has an old school style 302 in it, and it's like a hopped up one. But, you know, if you really want to make one of these go fast, you have to do a Coyote swap or an LS swap or something. But it's just like a around car, you know, but it's a really good time.
It looks beautiful. Like, they did, like, it looks nice on the outside.
Oh yeah, no, it's rock and roll. There's Google, if you got a computer in front of you, there's a SpeedHunters article with it. Larry Chen came out and shot it on like old school 35 millimeter film, and like, nice. I dressed like I was in the Beastie Boys. It was awesome.
Oh no way! Now I really have to watch that.
Oh dude, it's so great. There's the SpeedHunters article. Patty McGrath wrote it, and Larry Chen shot it, and it's like the greatest thing you've ever seen. And it was on the cover of CarCraft like 3 months ago.
Oh nice.
Yeah, I got a lot of press on that car. It's a good car.
Yeah, nice.
I'm looking at the article right now. Those are some gorgeous shots too.
Yeah, Larry Chen's the fucking man, dude. And you know, he shot it on film, so I got no instant gratification whatsoever. So anyway, to go forward in the car, so I've got this Corvette.
Yep.
I basically leave the Corvette at my parents' house when I go. Oh no, so my parents have like a vacation house in South Carolina that we've had for like my whole life. When I went to college, I put the Corvette there. Because I wanted to give my parents their garage spot. I had been completely, bless my parents. My parents had a 3-car garage in their house, and I had 2 of the spots were mine. I mean,
Good people.
My dad parked his car outside, and my mom got the 3rd spot. I mean, my parents, God bless them for putting up with me, but I wanted them to have their garage back. So the Corvette went to South Carolina, and I took the Mustang to college so they could put their cars in the garage. My fucking first day of college, very first day of college, I got pulled over in front of the library. I did a huge burnout.
You got to introduce yourself.
And I got pulled over by 6 bicycle cops.
Oh,
So bad. And it was so brutal. And now I went to college in Philadelphia, and I don't know if you guys have been to Philly, but the roads are a disaster.
Have not been to Philly. No.
And so, and I was driving back and forth from Philly to New York a lot and going on a lot of road trips. And, this Mustang, which had served me well as a high school car and a drive around suburbia car, was not a road trip / city commuter. And Philly just kicked the crap out of it. So I sold the Mustang. I sold it to a guy who totaled it the very next day before he had insurance on it. I drove it to the guy's house. He paid me. I think he paid me $9,700 in cash. He called me the very next day and asked about an extra key or an extra something or other, and I was like, "Why?" And he sent me pictures. Yeah, he totaled the fucking thing. No insurance, no registration. Ooh. Yep. Wow. Better him than me. And so I bought a 2001 Mercury Mountaineer all-wheel drive V8 from that same dude's dealership. The best thing about Town Motors in Englewood, New Jersey. Shout out to the Siebold family, all of them at Town Motors in Englewood, New Jersey, is that they have all kinds of brands. At the time, they had Lincoln and Mercury, though they have neither of those now. They got rid of that business.
Right.
But they also have Porsche, Audi, and Subaru. So my dad has bought a series of Porsches and Audis from them. My mom has bought a series of Audis from them. I bought at this Mercury Mountaineer also from them, also at a massive discount.
That's an SUV, correct?
That is it's an Explorer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask, what is it basically?
Yeah, it was a dolled up version of the Explorer.
I don't think we got those here either, Jeff. Do you recall?
Yeah, you probably didn't. But did you get the Lincoln Aviator?
Yes, we did.
We had that.
So it's roughly halfway between an Explorer and an Aviator.
Okay.
It's funny because we had the Mercury Villager because that's what I had.
Yeah.
Or not I had, but my parents had that when we were kids, but we definitely did not have the Mercury Mountaineer.
No, the Mountaineer was like straight up badge engineered, but honestly, it was nicer than the Explorer. Like it was a nicer car. But yeah, it had the V8 and the all-wheel drive, and in my sophomore, junior, and senior years of college, I put 97,000 miles on that.
Wow.
Road tripping. In 3 years, I put that much in college, which is crazy. And like that thing was awesome. Like I put I was playing in a band, and we would load all the band's gear into the back of it, and we would go on road trips, and we would go skiing, and we would do all this shit. And I was able to. It was a comfortable luxury utility truck. Actually, it was really nice. And I put like a system in it, like TVs in the headrest. This was like the heyday of TVs in the headrest.
Yeah.
And we did that, and I did subs and Alpine speakers, and
you got the pop-out DVD player too.
It had a flip. Well, so it had a flip-out Alpine in the front, with the screen, and then it had a third row, and it had headrests in the second row and headrests in the third row. So it had 5 total screens. And then it had Alpine speakers and amps, and a box that went behind the third row, and it fucking bumped, dude. It had like THX surround sound, so we would be on road trips, dude. We'd be on these road trips, like, and we would watch an entire season of The Sopranos. Like, we drove to, you know, Chicago once and literally watched an entire season of The Sopranos on the way. It was fucking great, and it was such a good truck. I think I went through 2 gearboxes, but like,
Wow.
yeah. Eventually I drove that into the ground and got an Audi S4 from the same dealership.
That's quite a difference.
Yeah, I wanted something a little smaller, a little more fun. I wanted a kind of sports car, and this one was like an executive demo, and so I got it mega cheap again. So one of the biggest things I regret in my car history is actually selling that car, that S4, because I sold it before its prime. I impulse bought a Hummer H1.
Oh, well, at least it was an H1.
It was an H1, yeah. And I traded it straight up for the S4 for the H1. Now, if I had held the H1 until today, this was 2006. If I had held the H1 till today, I would have come out ahead because they're worth more now.
Are they really?
Yeah, yeah. I got into and then subsequently out of the H1 3 months later. I only had the H1 for 3 months. I couldn't get out of it fast enough. It was such a flaming box. It was so terrible. To their credit, the Duramax ones, the Alphas that came out at the end of the run were like better, but I had the 6.5 turbo diesel and it was a hunk of shit, man. And I got out of it as quickly as I could.
What year was that?
The year was 2006. The car was a 2001.
Okay.
And it was an H1 diesel wagon, hardtop wagon.
Oh, okay.
There was almost nothing I liked about it except for the first 3 weeks I thought I was a fucking Russian mobster and it was amazing. And then I realized that I was actually driving, that everywhere I had to go, anytime I had to go there, I was taking the Hummer. And the Corvette was in South Carolina, so it wasn't like around, and the Hummer was like my car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get out of it fast enough. It was a disaster.
Literally.
I
and
traded it straight up for a super, super loaded up John Cooper Works Mini.
What? Wait a minute.
I went from an S4 to a Hummer and a Hummer to a Mini in a matter of... Yeah.
That is opposite ends of the scale. That's really
Yeah.
surprising.
If your listeners want to read the story of this in great, great detail, I wrote this entire story in like a 3,500 word editorial for The Drive last year. And it is easily searchable because no one has ever put S4, Hummer, and Mini in the same search term. And you can find it very easily. It's a very funny story.
Definitely look
With the moral of which is do not ever impulse buy a Hummer.
It's funny, you and I were probably driving Hummers at the same time, but for two very different reasons.
Oh,
I was in the military.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So around 2006, yeah.
Anyone who ever had to drive one in the military knows what a dumb move it is to buy one for the street.
Yeah, it's weird. It makes sense in the military, but
it makes sense if you're driving off-road. But
yeah.
At the time, I was living in Manhattan.
Oh.
How are you even parking this thing?
$1,500 a month. Garage, Lower Manhattan. It was, like I said, very, very dumb. Did not last.
Okay, so the biggest car on the street to the smallest car.
Yeah, to a Mini. Yeah. And the Mini was a lovely car, although I learned that you should never buy a Mini with 18-inch wheels. It's a disaster waiting to happen. I bent like 4 wheels. But I bent 4 wheels, and the car made me drive like a total... That was the first of a series of hatchbacks that all of which make you want to drive like a total... And the Mini, I got a ticket for doing 94 in a 55 on the way home from the dealer when I bought that car.
That is miles an hour as well.
This is going to go well. That car really made me want to drive super, super, super fast. And we modified it a bunch and made it really fast. And that that car was sort of where I started going to racetracks. I remember taking the Skip Barber beginner and then advanced course, and then the Bondurant course, and then an off-road driving course and a rally course, all while I had that car and I was taking it to track days. So the Mini is where I really started. I remember I learned to heel toe on the Audi, but the Mini was where I really started learning and studying, the art of performance driving. I sold that car to start the Smoking Tire.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I used my friend Larry, who I keep talking about, who had the Mustang. We were in business together in a car wash, and I sold Larry my half of the car wash, and I sold the Mini to start the Smoking Tire. Yeah.
What are you driving these days?
Well, more press cars than anything else, honestly. But
Okay.
that's probably not what you want to talk about. In my current collection, I have that Mustang. I have the Ford Focus RS. Has been modified by Mountoon. I suppose technically that's my daily driver, although I drive it far from daily. I have a 2001 Mercedes SL500.
Okay.
That I love. It's a perfect LA cruiser. That's what I call the sit-in traffic car. It's perfect for my daily life of sitting in traffic. Although, truth be told, because of the press cars, I'm not driving it very much these days, and my fiance drives it. So it's pretty much her car, but she really enjoys it. And it's nice. It's always nice, if possible, especially in a place like California, if you have the money and the space, having a convertible of some kind is lovely.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially one that like the SL, which is just. It's the one I have is pretty mint, and I Clarion hooked up the illest system in it. I haven't had a system in a car.
I was gonna say
the Mountaineer. The Mountaineer. When Clarion saw I bought the SL, and they were like, "Dude, we're all about that SL. Like, can we please hook up a system for you? Like, just let us take pictures of it when you're done. Like, we'll just give it to you." I'm like, "Yup."
Yeah, why not?
Like a 1200 watt, like sick custom sub box flip out. It's so 2001. It's got a flip out like my Mountaineer does. It was great, and it just bumps beats. It's so great. And so I have that. I have the 1,000,000-mile Lexus, which you may have heard about, which is a 96 Lexus LS400 that has 975,000 miles on it right now. And wait, what else do I have? I have a Porsche, a 911. That's being that Lee Keen is turning into a safari car.
Okay.
So off-road, LA is like off-roading. The roads are so here.
So bad.
Yeah, that you might as well have an off-road vehicle.
Absolutely.
And, what is a better off-road vehicle than a 911? So, it's an 88. No, it's an 87. Sorry, it's an 87 Carrera 3.2 G50 hardtop car. And we're doing, 4-inch lift. I'm hot rodding the motor, crazy interior. I like my interiors real crazy. I don't know if you saw on the Larry Chen article.
Yeah, that Mustang looks incredible
Mustang
inside.
interior looks like.
Yeah.
I like my Mustang interior is completely nuts and crazy, and I like it to where like it's just borderline offensive. I like my interiors. So we're doing LA City bus fabric. Which sort of looks like that 80s kind of confetti trash look on the inside. It's going to be amazing. Clarion's hooking up a system for that too. We're doing air conditioning and a fucking bump-in system in the safari car because you definitely want to have tunes going in AC while you're like mobbing sideways in the desert.
What kind of paint job are you going to put on that?
Actually, the paint on it is perfect, and we're leaving it. Yeah, it's cassis red, which is a really interesting and really strange color. It's an iridescent color. It shifts.
Oh yeah.
And in certain lights, it's very bronze, almost copper. In other lights, it looks gray. In other lights, it looks like a metallic purple.
Yeah.
It very rarely looks actually red. It only looks red if you take a really bad picture of it. If you take a picture of it like in super hot, like middle of the day sun, then it'll look like really 80s purple, but if you take a picture of it in the correct light, it's really very, very stunning color. So I've got that, and then I have this Aston Martin. It's like an '03 Vanquish that I've had for quite a long time. Over probably what year is 15 years I've had it. Wow. A long time. Jesus. 14 years I've had it. Sorry. But it's only notable because I sent it back to England and we put a manual gearbox in it.
Oh,
So
really? It was originally automatic.
The first gen Vanquishes did not come with manuals.
Oh.
And they had the really, really terrible F1 style gearbox that was just a total disaster of a system. And so Aston Martin will, for an extraordinary amount of money, put a manual in it for you.
Dan, what year's your Aston?
I have an 07 Vantage V8, nothing crazy, but it is also a manual.
Car. Such a good value.
Yeah.
So much car for the money.
Absolutely. I've had it for 4 years.
Right now is a really good time to buy an end of the run, like a 2014 or 15 V8 Vantage S. Now is a really good time to buy one of those.
Yeah, I mean, even back, I bought mine 4 years ago, my V8.
Yeah.
But manual transmissions were hard to find back then, and I found a manual one, so I'm keeping it for a while.
You should. I mean, they're very pretty cars. They're very nice to drive. Not crazy fast, but they make a really nice sound, and they're comfortable. Does yours work properly?
Yeah, no problems at all. Well, there is a rear brake warning light that is always on, even though I just had the brakes done. It's probably just a bad sensor at this point. But
yeah, the sensor's probably $5,000.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
My advice for Aston Martin owners is stuff that lessons I've learned the very hard way, especially with my Vanquish, which is like super 40, in terms of like, not necessarily stuff you see. Well, it is. You do see some. There's got a Jaguar radio and Volvo climate controls and all kinds of dumb shit like that. But they attempted to charge me like $2,700 for a fuel pump.
Wow.
And I used to work at this exotic car rental company called Gotham Dream Cars, and I learned very, very quickly there that exotic cars are not made of exotic parts.
Right.
And I did a little Googling and whatever, and found out that the fuel pump in a Vanquish is the same just stupid Bosch fuel pump that you would find in a Ford Super Duty pickup truck. And it's $179. It's the same part.
Bit of a savings.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a the parts business. And look, I understand that there's some specialized parts. If I crash the thing and have to buy a carbon fiber fender, like that's going to be expensive. I get it, but like, why should I get raked over the coals for a fuel pump? Like, that's just ridiculous. So, I definitely cannot stress enough to never go to an Aston Martin dealer.
Yeah, for sure.
I love my Aston Martin so much as a car. And every time I have to deal with the company, now not as a journalist, mind you, my dealings with Aston PR as a journalist have been excellent. I'm talking about every time I have to deal with Aston Martin as a customer.
Yeah,
they treat me like they're doing me a favor just by picking up the phone. They will give me a bill for $25,000 and treat me like they're doing me a favor.
Listen, it's $25,000. We give you the best friend price.
Yeah. So, but the car, in the long run, it's a V12, it's a stick, it's ridiculously pretty, and I love it, so I'll keep it. I think that's all my cars. I think that's it. I have a scooter. Well. My actual daily driver, if I'm not in a press car, is my Yamaha 125 scooter. Because in LA, you can lane split.
Yeah.
And so traffic is a disaster here. And on top of like saving time, like mentally, I just can't deal with it. I need to be moving faster than LA traffic will allow me to move.
I just like the mental image of Matt Farah just splitting traffic on a little scooter driving by me as I'm waiting in traffic.
It is the best. It is the best. I had a motorcycle. I had a Suzuki SV650, lovely bike. I'm telling you, in the city, my scooter is way more fun, way easier to deal with, cost me way less money. I bought this thing. It's like a '09 Zuma 125. I think I bought it with like, I don't know, 2,500 miles on it for like $1,500. Dude, I could sell this thing right now for today for $1,500. 3,800 miles in 3 years later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the miles don't look like much, but like, dude, this scooter saves me so much time. I never have to find parking. I just go right up front. You're allowed to park for free in between like parallel parked cars. And it's just the best. I look like I'm delivering Chinese food, you know, like I'm completely invisible. I can't pick up my phone. I have my own thoughts and like, dude, it's impossible for me to get a ticket. I can't get a ticket on that. I could do everything short of blowing red lights at full speed. It was in Los Angeles. It is impossible for me to get a ticket on that thing. And I just go flat everywhere. I drive like a complete dick. I'm super, super aggressive on it. And because no one sees you, so you have to be really aggressive. And no Los Angeles police officer in his right mind would waste their time pulling over a fat guy on a scooter. Nobody. Because you know why? I don't look, I'm not like a dickhead biker on a Ninja.
Right.
I'm not a guy on a Grom. You know, a Grom is like a joke bike. You know what I mean? If you ride a Grom, you're like kind of a hooligan. I ride what looks to be a utility scooter for delivering food. You know what I mean? Like nobody is going to pull that guy over and for his minimum wage day. Right. And I use that to my advantage 100% of the time.
Now, having driven the amount of cars you've driven just personally and I guess for work, what's one car that you haven't driven or been in that you just want to or wish you had?
Oh, I mean, I can't drive an F40. My legs don't actually fit around the wheel between the wheel and the shifter. So
how tall are you?
I'm 6'3".
Okay.
I used to think that I couldn't drive it because I was fat. I'm still kind of fat, but I was a lot more fat like 10 years ago. I was probably 75 pounds heavier like 10 years ago. And I thought it was because I was fat that I couldn't drive it. And then I got thinner and sat in one and it was like, oh no, it's literally just the length of your legs make this completely impossible. So, so I'll probably never get to drive an F40, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
You know, I've never actually driven a LaFerrari, either. I would like to have a go in a LaFerrari. I would like to have a go in that Koenigsegg Regera. I mean, you know, there's a ton of like, and like, okay, in terms of like truly unattainable, I could be like, yeah, 250 GTO, you know what I mean? Or I could be like Lancia 037, you know. I would say like Group B rally cars I'm all about.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff I'd like to try. I've driven a McLaren F1, so I don't have that. You know what I mean? For most people, that's the one. And I would love to have a real go in one. I had a 5-minute go in one, but still counts.
It does still count, yeah.
It still counts just enough. I got to drive a Stratos, which was a little disappointing. There's a bunch of to drive. I couldn't tell you just one.
Right.
That's good.
But you know, the good news is we happen to be in a period where the stuff that people are coming out with is just super, super, super crazy. I mean, I drove the Ford GT like 2 months ago. Super crazy. You know, I drove the new NSX. That's super crazy. The newest 911 turbos, and I have the 720S coming in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and by all accounts, that's just completely off the wall bat. And you know, the fact that people can just buy this stuff, the ZR1, the new ZR1, you know, 130 grand, 755 horsepower and 700 torque, and GT spec aero, and holy, you don't need like a special license for this. You can just walk into a store and buy this thing. Like, how is that responsible?
Right. It's a great day and age for sure.
You know, it's crazy. Yeah, it's real crazy. And I mean, I don't know if it'll last. I don't really like to make predictions, but I think you know, it's a tough time for cars because the further along we get, the more the cars are computer dependent.
Right.
And I just think that, not that I'm like, wow, everything should be like carburetors and, manual transmissions. Like, I'm not necessarily like that. I enjoy new cars and progress and neat things, but you genuinely have to wonder, old tech is not rewarding in the way that old machines are rewarding. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And no one's like, wow, I really want to collect this iPhone 5 and take it out on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Nobody has like a weekend Motorola flip phone from 94, like you're not busting out some Gateway 2000 laptop. And so that to me is what I wonder about. I wonder if collector cars are sort of frozen where they're at the sort of, if collecting, kind of stops at the end of analog.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I sort of wonder. And that's why, even though I've probably spent more money on my stupid Aston Martin than I could sell it for today, I think in 20 or 30 years that decision will have paid off. And in the meantime, I get to drive a 6-speed V12. So
that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
So Matt, listen, thanks so much for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed having you and these amazing stories and some amazing cars. I personally like the Nautica.
Nautica Villager is
the Nautica Villager is my favorite.
Oh man, the Villager we had. Once I got that Villager, my mom got a new Villager. She had a second Villager.
Of course,
and
the first one was amazing.
You think that's bad? All right, before we get out of here. So the second Villager I took to a Millennium Party, New Year's Eve 2000.
Okay.
And I took all the seats out, did the mattress in the back, the whole deal.
Oh.
We boxed that thing out. I hooked up with a girl. It was excellent. I have a lot of fond memories of those minivans. But my mother so after the second minivan was time to go, she got the first year RX 300 Lexus. She was so excited about this SUV Lexus and the Lexus customer service. She loved the customer service because of my dad's car. Like, this dealer had an amazing service department. They were open till midnight and whatever, and the Lexuses never broke. So my mom got one and then another, and the cars, when it came time to get a new RX 300, she was obsessed with them. The old one wouldn't necessarily be worth a lot of money, but it would have like no problems and reasonably low miles. So she'd put them at their vacation house in South Carolina. So we ended up with two down. At one point, my mom owned at the same time, concurrently, 5 Lexus RXs.
What?
Because every 2 years she'd get a new one, but she wouldn't get rid of the old ones. She would give one to her housekeeper. She gave one to my sister. They'd be at her vacation house. She'd be driving one. And at one point, she wouldn't personally be bouncing around. She only drove one of them, but she owned, to her name, 5 RX.
That's dedication right there.
So silly. We're down to 2. Right.
Slowly whittling them away.
Yeah, because once Lexus introduced, I think it was in 2013 or 14, once Lexus introduced that stupid mouse they have now.
Oh, right.
Their infotainment has a mouse on it now. Once they introduced that, mom was off the ship.
They lost their demographic.
They lost the demographic. They tried to go after the youth, and they lost my mom. And she jumped ship to Audi, and she's now had 3 Q5s in a row.
Take notes.
But she hasn't kept any of them. She trades them.
Oh.
No, but in South Carolina, in their vacation house, there's an 09 and a 2011. The last 2 RX, they're 3. One is a 330 and one is a 350. The last 2 are still there, and we just sold the 03 like 6 months ago, and the 01 she gave to my sister's friend as a wedding present. Like, my sister's best friend got married, she gave it to her as a wedding present. And the 99 my housekeeper drove, or their housekeeper drove, and sold it like a year ago. Like, there's a whole RX 300 ecosystem around my mother. It's crazy.
She's providing RXs for everybody.
My parents are the greatest people on earth. They're the greatest people on earth. My parents built a hospital in New York City.
Wow. That's
There's
amazing.
a Roger and Vivian Farah Pediatric Cancer Hospital in New York City. They are gangster.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Thanks for having me, guys. That was fun.
Yeah, man.
Thank
It
you.
was great. If you guys want to know more about Matt and everything, I'm sure everybody knows all about
Smoking
you, but-
Tire, all the
exactly.
things.
SmokingTire.com, and all the relevant links are there. And search up Matt on YouTube. There's all kinds of videos on there. Actually, the only video there isn't on there, it was from that Forza trip, because I was kind of looking for one to like reminisce, and I couldn't find any. So
Not from me. I don't know where you would find that. I don't know. I didn't make anything. I was driving the car.
Yeah, me too. I was just searching on YouTube in general, and I couldn't find a thing, which is kind of
Oh,
weird.
you know where you would search actually if you really gave it the Smosh guys, my video gamer co-driver.
Oh, that's
guy.
right.
Tons of videos. So I would look under Smosh Games Forza Horizon Road Trip. I bet you find their videos.
That was a fun trip too.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Thanks again, Matt. You are
Thank you guys.
great guy.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Amazing having Matt on. We really appreciated all his stories. Absolutely wonderful guy. Fond memories of our Forza trip. I wish there were more videos of it, but maybe I'll go search up the Smosh.
Never heard of those guys. I don't know.
Never heard of Smosh, huh?
No, I don't
Where
know.
you been living, man?
Under a rock.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Remember to rate and comment and like and all the appropriate things on all the appropriate platforms now on Spotify.
No, that's Spotify. Thank you to our patrons on Patreon.
Yes, absolutely. Our patrons, super important. We really appreciate what you guys are doing for us. And once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.